Hello and welcome. In today's video I'm reviewing the MOLLE belt set. The MOLLE belt set was the experimental version of the MOLLE motor waist belt. Going from left to right, the belt set features National Boating Company monster buckles. Under the strapping for the waist belt, it features a piece of webbing here. I get into that moment when I discuss the LBV. The belt material, or the part you stitch around yourself, is made out of the same material you see with like Alice webbing on, like an Alice pack. The MOLLE belt set features 7 columns of Powell's webbing with 2 rows each. Onto the center, it features 2 of these straps, which are the purpose of holding in the insert. As if you don't know, the MOLLE belt system uses a quick release between the frame and the belt. It features 4 rings on the bottom, at the back of it. The purpose of which is for the MOLLE butt pack. And the way that this attaches is, you just run it through the rings. And you cinch them down like so. And that just hangs down and smacks you in the bum. It features the 2 straps on the back for attachment to the LBV, along with 2 elastic keepers. This being, other than the latching straps, is the only thing that features elastic keepers in this MOLLE system. And goes true for both the finalized and experimental version. The tag reads MOLLE Modular Light Low Carrying Equipment Belt Set, and the designation, which is the MCN, I believe it is. I have to go double check my, well, I think it's the MCN. Bringing back, is essentially A465-01, which is essentially normal for anything load bearing, and then it features but the special part is A12-4992 with the 97 contract date, the same one you see with your finalized gear. And then it's made by Specialty Plastic Products, which was doing all the military contracts until they created a subsidiary known as Specialty Defense Systems. The remainder part of the belt is exactly the same, but one thing to note before we move on is that the back of the belt features plastic reinforcement. Essentially, it goes from about right here all the way to the other side, from the top of the belt to here. Move on to the inside. It essentially follows the same contour as most MOLLE belts, as where it dips down in the center where the top stays relatively flat. Mine is marked M for medium. I guess at the time they probably didn't have differentiating them between different sizes on the tag, rather this is just stamped it on there. It features 2 things of stitching here, which I get into in a moment. And now next is on to a comparison with other items, which you can see which have definitely influenced, which influenced this and this influenced. Okay, one note about the tag is that it's LCN, not MCN. MCN was used with the later MOLLE stuff. And one thing with the tag is that if you read, this is the first part here is the same as any other MOLLE component, but the only difference I know is that it has an extra 3 zeros and a 2. But moving on now, what I have here is a IFFS large food pack with internal frame. You may notice that I notice one thing of a similarity is that you have the stitching along the bottom here, which this does too. It's kind of the same design where you have it with nothing, with no like ribbon on the end like you see with the finalized version. Here it says it's sewn in inside material. You see that's done the same way. Pull them up. Both are just one giant piece of foam that was covered in fabric, and both use the same material for the belt. That is being the same material you see on Alice pack webbing. Comparing to the MOLLE motor waist belt, this one here is a medium as well. You see that there are some similarities, but many differences. First, to throw note, the MOLLE motor waist belt moves the rings for the butt pack lower down, instead of one being right here and one at the very top. It's about one in the same position, but a little lower, and one right above the securement straps for the insert. And speaking of the insert, my waist belt, my molded waist belt came with the insert, which you've probably never seen before, which looks like this. Essentially, it's a rubbery plastic for the insert itself, with the socket being a hard plastic. And that's it. That's what it looks like. So in case you ever wonder what that look like, that's what that one looks like. More in detail on it when I get it on a video about MOLLE. So you can see that it doesn't have that extra bit of webbing here that the experimental belt does. This features only 6 columns of webbing, while this one features 7. A downgrade if you ask me, because these things really need as much webbing, as much attachment points as possible. Both use the same type of buckle, that is Natural Molding Company Monster buckles, unlike the IFFS Ruck, which uses an ITW Nexus buckle. The tag for the belt isn't behind the insert, but rather it's on the attachment strap to the LBV. The belt material is, the cinch part is different. Instead of being Alice webbing, it is this nylon material. It's much thinner. You see that it's sewn the same way. What else is there? The opening for this is for the belt set is much smaller than it is with the waist belt. There's no plastic piece on the molded waist belt, unlike the belt set. The molded waist belt features these rings at the top for the attachment to the LBV. This one does not. And speaking of LBV, let's see how this attaches. So, for this, to attach it, like so, way, you want to take this and more or less wrap it around the belt, run it through here. And the way that I know this is because if you ever look at the MOLLE manual, like the July 1999, I believe it is, you can see that there's actually, some of the pictures actually reflect the experimental version of MOLLE rather than finalized. So and looking back, you just wrap it around here, like so. And the same thing is done over here. We just wrap it around the belt, like so. Here, but you can start to see that as you further go down the belt, it becomes harder and harder to weave this through. I don't think the experimental LBVs are any different than the finalized ones. So I think those even, and then after you get done, you run the back strap through, like so. Oh, speaking of the back straps, they're both the same. There's nothing really different about them, but I get into the proportions between them in a minute. That's what that's like. Meanwhile, in appearance, and that way is kind of poor for the belt set. Pardon me, as it becomes harder to weave to get the material through. The MOLLE molded waist belt does things a bit differently. It has these rings on here which you just run the straps through, like so. Like this. These rings were, from what I saw from the internet, or from the MOLLE utility belt, or during the experimental phase, the LBV waist belt. But other than that, it's essentially the same process repeated over. Now onto proportions. Moving on, I forgot to mention the interior. The interior of the belt set is completely flat, while the interior of the molded waist belt has all these ridges and stuff which allow for airflow and whatnot. You can see some of the stitching poking through the other side. Essentially, where it doesn't have the molding here is essentially just plain fabric, and essentially this feels a bit more comfortable than this. And you ever wore one of these belts with the insert, they're really uncomfortable until you get used to wearing one. Now onto proportions. Onto proportions, you can see that both waist belts are the exact same size. While it's a height at the base, the same general shape, both have the same length in regards to when it goes around you. The straps on the back are the exact same size. Since one of them's on top of the other, the one on top is going to seem longer, but even though it's not, if I was to flip it around, you see that now the opposite's true. The amount of room you get when you cinch the belt around your waist, actually I should say your hips because it doesn't want to go around your waist, is about, let's see, is about the same. So there isn't a whole lot of differences between these belts, but really the only difference is just the way that it was designed. For instance, this one is just one big piece of foam, and that one's like several pieces of foam cut into specific shapes. The fabric mold around it. This one's all flimsy, while this one's more rigid. But one difference is really with the way that it goes around you. Is that different materials here and there. The opening for the insert is way bigger on the molded waist belt, while it is on the belt set, which I forgot to mention earlier. But hey, better late than never. The way that the LBV attaches to it is different as well. So personally, in my opinion, this belt was way more comfortable to wear than that one. I think because I'm more used to it, and also it's a giant piece of foam. So if you have any questions or want to say something to add to the discussion to the video, be sure to put it down in the comments below. I'm going to link the manual in the description, so if you want to look at those pictures I was talking about where it depicts this belt rather than that one, be sure to do that. And now, goodbye.